1 year ago, the news rolled in like an avalanche. The NBA suspended its season. The governors closed schools, and the country, including everyone in our region, went into a period of lockdown. For weeks, the world had been tracking news of COVID-19, a new flu-like virus that was both extremely contagious and unusually deadly. Thus began a year that was heartbreaking, interminable, challenging, and yes, unprecedented. We heard that word a lot, unprecedented. It refers to things that haven't happened before. But in fact, there were parts of 2020 that have happened before, especially here. Courage, resilience, leadership, generosity, love, hope. Our friends, our neighbors, our teachers, our nurses, our leaders, our children, you. You were exactly who we thought you'd be because you've been that way before. Unflappable, resourceful, and strong.
The Cincinnati USA Regional Chamber, PNC Bank, Cincinnati Bell, and all our other sponsors have come together to recognize and honor some of the people who helped our region make it through the past 12 months. Every year, the Cincinnati Chamber names 4 people as Great Living Cincinnatians. To be named a Great Living Cincinnatian is one of our region's highest honors. Neil Armstrong, Carl Lindner, Judge Nathaniel Jones, Marian Spencer, Louise Nippert. Great Living Cincinnatians are known not for one thing, but for living a complete life of service to others and service to the place we call home.
These individuals left legacies here. They represent the best of us, the people who define us. Although we weren't able to honor a new class of Great Living Cincinnatians in 2020 due to the ongoing pandemic, we did think of those who have been honored in years past. We saw doctors who led in the image of Great Living Cincinnatian Albert Sabin. We saw brave souls stand up for justice, as did Great Living Cincinnatian Marian Spencer. And we saw business leaders stabilize our economy and care for the common good, just like Great Living Cincinnatian Lyle Everingham.
In 2020, we saw the spirit of our Great Living Cincinnatians alive in so many of our friends and neighbors. And so this year, in place of our annual celebration of new Great Living Cincinnatians, we've asked more than a dozen Great Living Cincinnatians to come together to tell your story for a change. Thanks for joining us.
Legacy of Leadership, A Region Rises, is a production of and sponsored by the Cincinnati USA Regional Chamber, presented by PNC Bank, and also brought to you by Cincinnati Bell. Portions of the program are brought to you by Humana, P&G, Resolve, and Western and Southern. Thank you to our supporting sponsors, Dinsmore, Cincinnati Northern Kentucky International Airport, and CBG's newest airline, Alaska Airlines, and our corporate patrons.
Has changed. The need for connection is stronger than ever. How you connect and the quality of your connections is more important than ever. Cincinnati Bell's fiber network has kept us working, learning, connecting. They were ready because they've been investing in the future, and this year they'll invest even more. More speed for more people, always ready for what's next. The future is bright because it's powered by fiber.
In 180 years of existence, the Cincinnati USA Regional Chamber has persevered through good and bad times, standing shoulder to shoulder with the businesses that sustain our economy. Being a member of the Cincinnati USA Regional Chamber is more than a membership. It's a network of community and business leaders who want to see you flourish and experience new heights of success. We are your advocate and your bridge to transformational economic progress. Let's talk about how we can serve your business. Visit cincinnatiChamber.com/learn more.
Sure, your health insurance tells you to see a doctor, but look around. These days, it's not that easy.
You're telling me.
But Humana Health make it easy. Human Care gives you tons of ways to talk to your doctor. Phone, computer, in person, or tablet. Hey, Jean.
Hi.
It's just a quick follow-up. Your numbers are looking great.
You don't even have to put on shoes.
Ooh, easy peasy.
You like that, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Humana, a more human way to health care.
This portion of the program is brought to you by Humana.
In 1967, the Cincinnati Chamber chose a Polish immigrant and a medical doctor as its first Great Living Cincinnatian. Born Abram Saperstein, and just prior to going off to college, young Saperstein became a naturalized citizen and changed his name to Albert Sabin. Less than a decade later, he moved to Cincinnati, where he worked as a lieutenant in the United States Medical Corps, specializing in vaccines, and took a job at Children's Hospital. Dr. Sabin developed the oral vaccine for polio in the 1960s. Dr. Sabin's leadership around mass vaccinations led to saving countless of lives. Today, thousands of our friends and our neighbors are receiving the COVID vaccine, putting us on a path to eradicate this disease, hopefully forever. In the past year, the spirit of Dr. Sabin has guided many people in our region. Doctors, nurses, researchers, and patients were part of a medical system that saved lives, comforted families, and did the research that got us to where we are today, a moment where the end is in sight. During this past year, we've seen our health leaders up close and personal. We couldn't be more proud or grateful to them. Here are some of their stories.
The pandemic was up close and personal for our region's nurses, doctors, and researchers. Back in March and through the summer, doctors and nurses faced the virus head-on at a time when little was known about COVID-19.
I have never seen anything like what I've seen with the COVID-19, especially the change in the practice and the number of people that it is potentially affecting.
At hospitals throughout our region, suddenly the majority of patients were COVID patients. Elective surgeries were canceled, and the quest for PPE, personal protective equipment, became a critical mission. But nurses and doctors and everyone that is part of our medical and health system stepped up to lead and serve. But behind the scenes, another group of doctors were working to help defeat COVID permanently.
As the nation struggles to immunize more people faster, Cincinnati scientists and doctors are testing what could be the nation's third COVID-19 vaccine to speed up the process.
We seek out doctors and nurses at our most vulnerable moments. This year, they helped us in ways we could never have imagined and sacrificed immensely to serve others and keep us healthy.
In the midst of the COVID pandemic, it was obvious that Black and brown populations were being hit harder by the effects of this terrible disease. Tragically, the populations worst hit were also those that have struggled to overcome issues of inequity and disparate treatment for decades. In Cincinnati, the region worked to combat historic injustice by putting intentional focus on helping minority communities recover and prevent the spread. Calling on the legacy of Great Living Cincinnatians like Dr. George Hale Sr., a leading doctor who overcame racism in the industry to establish a 40-year medical practice in Avondale, and Dr. Alvin Crawford, one of the nation's leading spine specialists, who was the first African American to graduate from his medical college. In 2020, we saw our health industry do more to work for equity and justice while fighting COVID-19.
Early on, we learned that this pandemic would hit Black and brown communities harder. Every subsequent action we took as a region had to take this truth into account. If not, the outcomes would be inequitable and devastating. The Restart Task Force put equity first by insisting that our region focus on a local response with culturally competent messages and prioritizing hard-to-reach communities. The Center for Closing the Health Gap worked to create education and messaging to urge people to get tested. Forums, testing centers, and getting the word out worked. In one neighborhood, Lincoln Heights, regular testing sites and a community health approach kept people apprised of testing, vaccines, and more.
We have to speak directly to people, recognizing there is mistrust. But if we are honest and transparent, it will work.
We didn't get everything right in 2020, and the pandemic exposed so much more that our community must address to achieve equity. But together, we made strides in 2020.
The incredible coordination that COVID-19, this pandemic, has required has kept all of you in healthcare, government, and business busier than ever. We've switched from personal medicine to telemedicine, and the massive coordination of effort to get masks, ventilators, personal protection equipment to hospitals, nursing homes, and other facilities has been a monumental task. But Cincinnati's leaders and you have stepped forward to make this happen in ways that have been both visible and invisible. The stories that have been told recall the work of Dr. Charlie Barrett and Ruth Lyons, two great living Cincinnatians who were given the honor in the same year, 1987. At that time, Dr. Barrett was a cancer doctor who made his life work to improve cancer detection, saving lives. He went on to an enormously successful career as the CEO of Western Southern, a leader of this community, but he never gave up his effort to fight cancer. In fact, in 1988, all the university hospital cancer fighting efforts were brought under one roof and called the Charles M. Barrett Center for Cancer Research and Treatment. His fellow honoree, Ruth Lyons, known for her trailblazing broadcast, created the Christmas Fund in 1939. It still operates today, raising money like it did then to purchase everything from toys to medicine to equipment for hospitalized children. Yes, Dr. Barrett and Ruth Lyons helped this community organize and support the sick, as thousands of you have done in the same and in a myriad of ways during 2020, during this pandemic.
From sourcing PPE to delivering vaccines, we've had to work together to serve each other during this past year. And like we've done for centuries, we were generous and innovative.
When COVID hit, it was immediate, and we knew that we had to respond quickly. There was urgent. We had, real life examples of people. They lost their job, they have no income, they can't pay their rent.
The number of people coming to the Freestore Food Bank is up 63% since March.
We went from distributing 400 to 500,000 pounds of food to where we're now distributing over 1 million pounds of food every week. 75% of all the families that come to our large-scale food distributions have never set foot in one of our pantries.
Now, it wasn't just charitable work either. The Health Collaborative, in the spirit of health leaders from our region over the past century, organized a unique testing effort, Test and Protect. This is what we do in the Cincinnati region in the spirit of those before us. We organize, we serve, we give, and we respond.
Legacy of Leadership, A Region Rises, is presented by PNC Bank and also brought to you by Cincinnati Bell.
We never know where life will lead us or what may hinder us along the way. But while every day can feel like one big question mark, it doesn't have to. With the right insights, strategies, and solutions from Western and Southern Financial Group, together we can look ahead to leave the unknown behind.
Feeling stressed in your skin? Not with new Olay Retinol Body Wash, which improves skin 3 times better, from dry and stressed to bright and smooth. So I can feel my best in my skin. Olay Body, fearless in my skin.
This portion of the program is brought to you by P&G.
Since arriving in Cincinnati almost 60 years ago to join Procter & Gamble, I have seen and indeed I've admired how the business community has stepped up working with others in the community to make this city and this region a better place to live. I can go back to 1915 when business leaders, including the then CEO of Procter & Gamble, came together to create what became the community chest. And year after year from then, whether it be World War, economic recession, or a time of social unrest and need, leaders in the community from business and others have come together to, again, make this a better place to live. I am very encouraged as I see the leaders coming forward from business and many other organizations, including the Chamber, the United Way, the Urban League, and many more. I am hopeful and determined that we will be able to muscle up and come together in order to address these challenges and opportunities of our time.
Our region has always benefited from having a diverse and engaged business community. This year was no different, and our ability to make it through 2020 was in large part due to the way businesses stepped up to help. Business leaders announced the formation of the Restart Task Force, led by CEOs from P&G, Kroger, Verst, CVG, Cobco, Fifth Third, and more. P&G partnered with Brain Brew, CVG, and the Chamber to launch Restart Kits that help local businesses get the PPE they need to stay open. P&G and other companies also helped support the creation of the United Way Fund. But that wasn't all. Business leaders came together to deliver messages to the community about staying safe and helped fund the RC3. And the influence was felt throughout the country, too. Duke Energy created $150,000 in small business funds on both sides of the river. And Cincinnati Bell partnered with Cincinnati Public Schools and Covington Independent Schools, offering free internet and Wi-Fi to families who had previously lacked access to the internet. Business leaders were at the forefront of crafting a response and getting the word out about masks, directing efforts to share PPE, and serving as volunteer leaders to help our community get through 2020.
Our region's economy has thrived because of innovators and entrepreneurs who created jobs, found new markets, and delivered products to customers around the world. Manufacturing started in Cincinnati in 1793, before Ohio was even a state, and products were made and marketed right here that were delivered all over the world. We know the food business here too. After all, it was a Great Living Cincinnatian, Lyle Everingham, who made sure that Kroger remained a public company headquartered right here in Cincinnati. Business ingenuity matters, and it mattered more than ever this past year. The Castellini Company helped deliver food far and wide to keep Kroger stores stocked and open for business. And Kroger in turn found ways to stay open, reimagine the grocery store, and grow internally.
Suddenly, this year, going to the grocery store was a nerve-wracking thing to do. But fortunately for us, the region benefited from being the headquarters of the nation's largest traditional grocer. Kroger's community leadership helped our community respond and set the tone for the national response in the grocery industry. But serving millions of us every day required ingenuity too. Kroger not only innovated the in-store experience, they also delivered thousands of items and created pickup locations in nearly all of its stores in the region, revolutionizing the customer experience. And dozens of other retailers learned to deliver, carry out, build shields, navigate 6-foot distances, and find new ways to serve customers, even during a global pandemic. Our region is at the center of a great supply way, as Amazon Prime Air grows at CVG Airport and Kroger's Ocado Distribution Center grows in Monroe. Our region knows how to get products to customers fast and efficient. For retailers, this year was a difficult change in the way they served customers and the way they protected associates. Yet their ingenuity helped serve thousands, keep stores open, and manage huge increases in business.
When I founded my company, I worked with one of the best bankers in our region. My local bank helped me establish a path of growth and, of course, made sure that I had what I needed to succeed. And that's the way it's been in our region for years. Bank leaders and Great Living Cincinnatians, like Carl Lindner, who led Provident Bank, and of course, there's Clem Binger from Fifth Third. And let's not forget Oliver Burkhead from PNC. These leaders grew a banking community here in our community that ensured there were personal relationships with small businesses. This year, banks like those I mentioned, plus US Bank and First Financial, along with many other financial institutions, stepped up. It was local bankers, relationship managers from banks both large and small that worked 24 hours a day to process PPP loans, help restructure some businesses, and make the tough decisions. They were our partners, and in doing so, kept people employed and our economy going.
Cincinnati region small businesses needed help this year with changing regulations, limited occupancies, a slowed economy, and other headwinds caused by COVID. Businesses needed help, and our region's banks, always the partners for small businesses, stepped up.
Our bankers work nonstop, night and day, to help small businesses access loans, PPP funds, and more. For many businesses, we were their first call as they adjusted to operating in a COVID reality.
Bankers were offering advice on PPP loans, adjusting loans and banking needs for small business owners, and generally helping everywhere they could. In fact, businesses in our regions were loaned more than $4.6 billion, according to the Chamber's Center for Research and Data. It's the equivalent of a vaccine for our local economy. They helped keep many businesses from closing and kept nearly 520,000 people in jobs.
A region's business community must rise up to do good in times of great need. And that's what happened in Cincinnati in 2020. Our region made it through this past year because we've had a robust, diverse business community driving our economy. Great Living Cincinnatians embody the spirit of our region. Early in my career at P&G, I was privileged to know one of those Great Living Cincinnatians, John Smale, who was CEO and chairman of P&G. John was visible everywhere, in the community and in business. And later in life, Mr. Smale continued to give. So the next time you walk through the John and Phyllis Smale Riverfront Park, you can thank John Smale again. I have seen the spirit of leaders like John Smale, Lyle Everingham, and Clem Banger return throughout 2020, driving success in business and finding ways to give back and to help our economy through that most difficult year of this pandemic.
Legacy of Leadership, A Region Rises, is a production of and sponsored by the Cincinnati USA Regional Chamber, presented by PNC Bank, and also brought to you by Cincinnati Bell. Portions of the program are brought to you by Humana, P&G, Resolve, and Western and Southern.
Our world has changed. The need for connection is stronger than ever. How you connect and the quality of your connections is more important than ever. Cincinnati Bell's fiber network has kept us working, learning, connecting. They were ready because they've been investing in the future, and this year they'll invest even more. More speed for more people, always ready for what's next. The future is bright because it's powered by fiber.
Feeling stressed in your skin? Not with new Olay Retinol Body Wash, which improves skin 3 times better, from dry and stressed to bright and smooth. So I can feel my best in my skin. Olay Body, fearless in my skin.
In 180 years of existence, the Cincinnati USA Regional Chamber has persevered through good and bad times, standing shoulder to shoulder with the businesses that sustain our economy. Being a member of the Cincinnati USA Regional Chamber is more than a membership. It's a network of community and business leaders who want to see you flourish and experience new heights of success. We are your advocate and your bridge to transformational economic progress. Let's talk about how we can serve your business. Visit cincinnatiChamber.com/learn more.
I'm so proud of our fellow journalists this year, especially here. Journalists in Cincinnati and across the world have exhibited tremendous bravery and determination to make sure that the stories of 2020 were told. Truth matters. And journalists, whether on TV, radio, newspapers, online, help us find truth. Journalists in our community have lived in the tradition of Great Living Cincinnatians, like the legendary Bill Burley, lifelong journalist who rose to CEO of Scripps. Charlie Scripps himself, who was chairman of Scripps for nearly 40 years. Ross Love, one of the most influential African-American radio station networks in the country. And Marjorie Parham, the founder and editor of the Cincinnati Herald. On behalf of consumers of news all through our region, and with respect for the courage and grit all demonstrated in 2020, thank you. Thank you for what you did to lead, to educate, and to inform our community.
Sure, your health insurance tells you to see a doctor, but look around. These days, it's not that easy.
You're telling me.
But Humana helps make it easy. Human Care gives you tons of ways to talk to your doctor. Phone, computer, in person, or tablet. Hey, Jean.
Hi.
It's just a quick follow-up. Your numbers are looking great.
You don't even have to put on shoes.
Ooh, easy peasy.
You like that, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Humana, a more human way to health care.
We never know where life will lead us or what may hinder us along the way. But while every day can feel like one big question mark, it doesn't have to. With the right insights, strategies, and solutions from Western and Southern Financial Group, together we can look ahead to leave the unknown behind.
This portion of the program is brought to you by Western and Southern.
The heart of any neighborhood is often the local restaurant or perhaps pub. It's where we come together with family and friends to share stories, good food, and a beverage. Much of that was curtailed last year because of the pandemic, but creative and hardworking business leaders and entrepreneurs found ways to stay open by adjusting their business models and therefore being able to serve its patrons. These business owners deserve our gratitude, not for just how they kept their places open, but ways to maintain our culture and our treasured gathering places. Great Living Cincinnatian Buddy LaRosa knows the power of gathering friends and family around a table for a good meal. So did Great Living Cincinnatian Marian Becker, the first lady to win this award, for her part in producing the joy of cooking with her mother for so many years. In 2020, hundreds of restaurateurs followed the footsteps of Buddy and Marian by insisting that our regional's food, restaurant, and culture stayed alive during the industry's most difficult time ever.
Perhaps no industry was hit as hard by COVID as our region's thriving restaurant industry. For the last 10 years, Cincinnati has received national recognition for our trendy and vibrant restaurant and bar scene. Then, in 2020, we faced the biggest challenge. When restaurants closed by the governor's orders, we weren't sure what would happen. And then came reopening, but with curfews, limited seating, and more.
If we were closed down for 90 days, that's 90 days without revenue. I challenge any business to ever experience anything like that.
But as it turned out, our restaurant and bar owners weren't willing to give up.
Rooftop restaurateurs are unzipping a warm way for you to dine this fall.
In fact, they changed their way of doing business, started new side businesses, and are weathering the storm.
Covington Yard, an outdoor food hall made out of shipping containers, is located at the corner of Greenup and 4th Streets in Covington.
Some restaurant owners were in the middle of the action.
Next month, Olga will be 93 years old, and that's not stopping her from coming to work 7 days a week and 8 hours a day.
It's Corona scared of her, I think.
And some in the bar industry found new ways to build community. Perhaps some of you are enjoying them tonight.
2020 was a difficult year for small businesses as people stopped going out and turned to home delivery. But as the economy is driven by small businesses, the desire to grow and thrive even in the most difficult of circumstances. Many Great Living Cincinnatians are in this category. Great Living Cincinnatian Frances Petker, the founder of Jones the Florist. Her company, still bringing joy today by delivering flowers throughout Cincinnati, was and is a thriving small business in our region. Business leaders like Frances Petker make up the economy, and the leaders in 2020 that took chances and innovated are owed our thanks and eternal respect. Imagine opening a new brewery or a hotel during the pandemic, or transforming your clothing company into a company that sews masks. It happened here because of the business ingenuity that drives our economy. These people are following in the footsteps of many Great Living Cincinnatians.
An entrepreneur is a risk taker, someone who leans into a challenge in order to make a product, serve a customer, and contribute to the economy. What was it like to be an entrepreneur in 2020? Well, in Cincinnati, some businesses sailed into the storm and opened their doors for the first time. Take Rebel Metal, for instance. The new brewery downtown won praise for opening up in the middle of the pandemic and opened safely in a part of downtown that welcomed new activity, the historic West 4th District. The brewery found ways to introduce their product, brew beer safely, and lay the foundation for growth when the pandemic subsides. And Derek Brazil, co-founder of entrepreneurship incubator Mortar, opened Pata Roja Tequila to Bar Seso in Pendleton. Elsewhere downtown, new hotels opened up, like the shining new Lyle Hotel on 4th Street. The completely renovated building boasts a rooftop deck, helpful during a pandemic, and luxurious rooms for those who wanted a staycation. Opening a hotel in a pandemic was a risk, but in Cincinnati, we are willing to swim against the tide for greater success.
In the early days of the pandemic, the news was all about lockdowns and quarantine. Office workers took home their laptops, learned how to Zoom, and built offices in their houses. But for essential workers, the adjustment to the pandemic came much more quickly. Firefighters and police officers didn't have 2 weeks to learn how to deal with COVID. As we've seen tonight, grocery and restaurant workers continue to show up and serve every day. In the early moments, they were literally putting their lives on the line.
Our friends and neighbors on the front lines inspired us all this year, and teachers most certainly were on the front lines. When schools closed in mid-March, tens of thousands of our kids in the region lost a daily connection to a devoted teacher. So we caught on to remote learning in Google Classroom. Suddenly, parents all over the region became full and part-time assistants. While the schools chose a variety of different options to stay connected, this academic year was one for the books.
Teachers. In an ordinary year, teachers have a tough job. In March of 2020, the governor closed schools. Since then, teachers, true essential workers, have had it harder than most. First, they finished up a school year often entirely online. Students missed graduations and proms. But in the meantime, teachers and school staffs were procuring Chromebooks, producing videos, and making sure their students had adequate Wi-Fi.
I'm just trying to get the message across that, hey, now we're 2 days a week. Now we're online part of the time, and we're online at home. A lot of them don't have Wi-Fi at home, or they don't have technology at home. They might have dad's cell phone, but they have to wait for dad to get home from work in order to access their assignments online.
For many schools this year, summer was a time to work to make plans for an uncertain fall. And when schools reopened in varying states in the fall, teachers dealt with quarantines, pods, masks, and the difficulties of teaching a 7-year-old to mute themselves. A year like no other, indeed. And schools sought help and, of course, found it. Cincinnati Public Schools partnered with La Soup and others to get meals to families who relied on schools for lunch and oftentimes breakfast. Thanks to Cincinnati Bell, students who needed it received free Wi-Fi so they could connect and learn. But in 2020, the very definition of teacher blurred, didn't it? Parents, moms and dads, and sometimes grandma too, relearned algebra, reread Jane Austen, and maybe even learned a few crafts. If you logged on to Google Classroom, tutored a kid, sorted through a hybrid schedule, or even just found a way to keep a kid occupied when they should have been in school, we salute you and all you did this year for our children.
Legacy of Leadership, A Region Rises, is presented by PNC Bank and also brought to you by Cincinnati Bell.
world has changed. The need for connection is stronger than ever. How you connect and the quality of your connections is more important than ever. Cincinnati Bell's fiber network has kept us working, learning, connecting. They were ready because they've been investing in the future, and this year, they'll invest even more. More speed for more people, always ready for what's next. The future is bright because it's powered by fiber.
Okay, girl, you got this. No one's gonna see you sweat. You can be feminine and fierce, low-key, and all done up. You don't have to settle on playing just one role.
Introducing new Secret Antiperspirant with essential oils. The strong sweat protection of Secret. Now with pure essential oils like lavender, mandarin, and cedarwood. Secret, all strength, no sweat.
This portion of the program is brought to you by Resolve.
Art moves us, it stirs us, it inspires and motivates. It's a soundtrack of a time and an indelible image of a moment. People often say that Cincinnati punches above its weight class when it comes to the arts. Truth is, that's just wrong. We are in our own weight class. Our arts have always put Cincinnati on the map. Louise Nippert, Ralph Corbett, Dick Rosenthal, and Otto Buttocks kept our arts institution alive and breathing with energy. This year was devastating to our arts institutions and artists. We saw that the arts are a big part of our economy. Theaters shuttered, museums closed, concert halls were quiet, and yet the arts carried on. We performed outside, online, in our homes, and in our neighborhoods. The arts spilled out everywhere. Our buildings may have been closed, but our culture was stronger than ever.
What I wouldn't do to see some live music right now. But along with restaurants, one of the hardest hit industries was arts and culture. Museums, outdoor events, concert halls, theaters, and art galleries were closed due to COVID. Think of what we learn and experience when we take in art together. We missed that this year. But artists were willing to step up and be seen in new ways. The Cincinnati Pops began their new season on, where else? YouTube. Cincinnati Shakespeare Company, or Cincy Shakes as they are known, performed in parks throughout the region. The Children's Theater of Cincinnati channeled storytelling methods which were centuries old by incorporating mask work and pantomime into the shows. Each production was presented live and streamed through Broadway on Demand for not only the patrons in the Cincinnati region, but around the world. And our generous arts funders found a way too.
One of the first things that we did was weekly and bi-weekly meetings of arts leaders, emergency response grants. We accelerated grant payments, and then we also made bridge loans available.
Local artists found a way to thrive too. Kick Lee's Cincinnati Music Accelerator kept booking regional musical talent at outdoor venues, providing opportunities and ensuring the music continued even without a hall full of people. Our community has always valued the importance of art, and though we miss it, together we invested to protect it for future years to come.
A vibrant arts culture values equity. In a year of twin pandemics, COVID and a reckoning with racial injustice, Cincinnati led a heightened effort to invest and support in Black and brown artists in our community. Our region will rise because we value equity and justice, and because we give voice to those who have not been heard. Art is one way we can do that. Phyllis Weston knew about finding artistic talent. When she was recognized as the Great Living Cincinnatian in 2013, it was said that she had a great eye for great art. Her work helped create the Cincinnati wing of the Art Museum, and it helped the world better know another great living Cincinnatian, John Ruthin, who passed away just a year ago. Today, our city is discovering new talented Black and brown artists. They are inspiring and invoking topics that force us to reckon with the great issue of our time, racism, and how it holds all of us back. In 2020, we celebrated in new ways. We celebrated artists who are sure to define our region for decades to come.
Two years ago, G. Horton was working in business, wearing a suit and worrying about helping talented people connect to new jobs. He traded his laptop for an easel and is now thriving as an artist, curator, and creative leader in our city. But when COVID hit, some of his momentum could have stalled. It didn't because our region deliberately found ways to invest in Black and brown artists.
Through pain, we can find beauty, we can find unity. I believe that's what we're seeing in this project.
This is a unique part of our region. Imagine that once COVID is over, the investment and support in our region's Black and brown artists will have sparked a revolution in the art world. These are the individuals who will lead and drive culture in our region for years to come.
Because of the times that we're living in right now, I think this is a great way to kind of celebrate the type of people that we are.
Rico and his partner Ray Ball launched the Black and Brown Faces art exhibit at the Cincinnati Art Museum, the first of its kind.
We had no clue that Black and brown faces would have this level of impact on our community. To have an exhibition of this caliber at a museum that's so prestige, that's unheard of.
Could 2020, even with COVID, be the year we look back on as the moment our city surged to the national scene as a center for Black and brown culture and art? Let's hope so.
Has changed. The need for connection is stronger than ever. How you connect and the quality of your connections is more important than ever. Cincinnati Bell's fiber network has kept us working, learning, connecting. They were ready because they've been investing in the future, and this year they'll invest even more. More speed for more people, always ready for what's next. The future is bright because it's powered by fiber.
Last summer, in the midst of the COVID pandemic and already clear inequities in how the pandemic was affecting the Black and brown population in our country, a man named George Floyd was murdered in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Breonna Taylor was killed in Louisville. Other Black men and women were killed too. And we rose up in protest again and again. And because for too long, injustice and equality have permeated our community. We marched, we prayed, and we demanded change. Just like those who came before us, the Reverend Fred Shuttlesworth was named a Great Living Cincinnatian in the year 2000. He was a national leader in the move for civil rights. Reverend Shuttlesworth was nearly killed for what he stood for. He persevered, and we are a greater, stronger society because he did. And this summer's Black Lives Matter protest made us stronger also. They brought us together in a common goal for inclusion and equality. They helped us realize that even in the darkest hours of our lives, we are stronger when we peacefully march together for unity and justice.
In May, George Floyd was killed in Minneapolis, resulting in outcry from across the world and right here in Cincinnati. Our community was tired, outraged, and frustrated with the prevailing injustice that has gone unbridled in our nation for so long. What followed were weeks of protests and a call for racial reckoning. The emotional turmoil brought on by the pandemic escalated to new levels as humanity grappled with the untold stories of Black experiences in America. These stories were foundation of a new activation in our community to finally make newfound progress to cultivate a more equitable nation. For the first time, we saw more corporations stand up to racism, bias, and inequality. Many used their platforms to advance the cause and advocated for reform, a reform of our thinking and systems. Local organizations like the Cincinnati USA Regional Chamber led civic activities.
Figure out where you are in the journey, and then how do you become an ally? How do you bring that to your organization? How do you speak up and say, this isn't right at the table?
2020 will certainly be remembered for COVID, as well as the unflappable determination of those who were and still are fighting to lift up voices and confront issues of institutional and structural racism. Even at a moment when we felt divided, we found ways to come together. Billy Thomas and Destiny Thomas from the Cincy Nice Social House organized community tables during Juneteenth weekend. The tables brought hundreds of people together to talk, learn, and listen. This exchange of experiences and stories created an environment for people to feel heard and understood. The leadership of those who influenced and arranged in the marches, protests, and community activities of the past year chaperoned new conversations, ushering in a widespread look at inequities in everything, in health, in policing, in housing, and in so much more. Expanding our perspective and understanding of systemic challenges is exactly what we need to advance humanity.
Helping our community recover from the two pandemics won't just take vaccine or systemic reforms. It will take economic growth, in particular among communities of color. In 2001, two Great Living Cincinnatians, Tom Cody and Ross Love, led Cincinnati Can, an effort that helped our city recover after a moment that was frighteningly familiar to those who were watching what happened in Minneapolis this summer. One of the legacies of Cincinnati Can is the Minority Business Accelerator, one of the nation's largest and most successful minority business efforts. The next phase of the Minority Business Accelerator is coming soon. The organization, part of the Cincinnati Chamber, will soon launch the MBA Fund 1, a multi-million-dollar fund that will leverage investments into helping minority businesses grow. The Chamber's Minority Business Accelerator is a critical component of our economy and a key driver of equity here in our region. As the nation reeled from the tragedy in Minneapolis, in Cincinnati, we did what we often do. Got to work creating systems and initiatives that lead to a more just future.
We have more to do in our region so that we become a better place where equity and justice exist for everyone. This year proved one thing to be true. We are not willing to give up. One legend that our region knows well is that of the candle in the window. The story is told enslaved people seeking freedom in the North would look for a lantern or a candle in the window of a home to know that the house was part of the Underground Railroad. And that's who we are as a people. We've lit candles and we worked, sometimes quietly and sometimes out loud, but we've done it all for justice, for freedom, and for our equity. Our city is not perfect, but we are an example of a city that hasn't stopped trying and never will. Marian Spencer, the Great Living Cincinnatian who integrated Coney Island, once said, "I didn't accept a no when it was wrong. It has been my responsibility," she said, "to change things." Another icon, Judge Nathaniel Jones, a Great Living Cincinnatian, who fought for justice through the law his entire career at the NAACP and also as a federal judge, said it best for our city. People should be proud to make this city an even better place to live. Democracy requires participation. Even in the most difficult year that we have ever faced, we were united in our efforts to press on and to make this city an even better place.
I hope you've enjoyed being with us tonight, and I hope you've been inspired by the stories of great living Cincinnatians in our past. These individuals built legacies that we stand upon every day in our efforts to build a better community. And if you were looking closely, you saw the spirit of Great Living Cincinnatians alive and well in the lives of people who accomplished so much and who battled so many challenges in 2020.
We saw it in friends and neighbors.
We saw it in our nurses and doctors.
We saw it in our essential workers.
We saw it in our artists.
We saw it in our business and community leaders.
We saw it in our family.
We saw it in you.
Thank you again for everything you continue to bring to your family, friends, and neighbors through this devastating pandemic.
From all of us at the Cincinnati USA Regional Chamber, thanks for joining us. We'll see you in person next February to honor our next class of Great Living Cincinnatians. Have a good night.
Legacy of Leadership, A Region Rises, is a production of and sponsored by the Cincinnati USA Regional Chamber, presented by PNC Bank, and also brought to you by Cincinnati Bell. Portions of the program are brought to you by Humana, P&G, Resolve, and Western and Southern. Thank you to our supporting sponsors, Dinsmore, Cincinnati Northern Kentucky International Airport, and CBG's newest airline, Alaska Airlines, and our corporate patrons.